Hello, I'm Corinna Harrod and this is the Monday Night Review. Hello, welcome to episode 142. It is my birthday week. I should say happy birthday to my husband. I'm assuming you're not listening to this today as we are doing birthday stuff, but when you get round to it, if you get round to it, if you haven't had enough of me banging on about today's topic, then happy birthday. I'd also like to give a shout out to my sister. She's been under the knife, not in a cosmetic way, this week. And if I'd been a good sister and really organised, I'd have got you some extra episodes up because, I mean, if you're in a hospital bed or in your sick bed at home, it's quite nice to have stuff to listen to. Not that I think you'll be missing out at all. She's my go-to for interesting podcast recommendations. We're going to get straight into it because today's episode is really close to my heart. I am a horsey girl and I work a couple of days a week at a yard. And when I was small, I just wanted to be a rider when I grew up. And this all takes place in the 80s. I was born in the 80s and I have this strong memory of horsey life and the horsey world in the 80s. And this is such a big part of it. I should also talk about where we're going. We're going to Ireland. And Ireland in the 80s was in the middle of the Troubles. The IRA were wanting to unify Ireland and Northern Ireland and get Northern Ireland away from UK British rule. And by the mid-1980s, they were running out of money. And they needed money for arms and ammunition and all of that. And so it was a time where they had resorted to kidnapping and asking for ransom. So we're in Ireland, we're in the horsey world, and we're going to talk about possibly one of the most famous horses that's ever existed. If you're not horsey, don't switch off. This is true crime, but with a pony twist. So today we're going to talk about Shergar. Shergar is still one of the most famous racehorses of all time. He's an Irish-bred thoroughbred racehorse, born in 1978, bred by the Aga Khan. And though it doesn't make any difference to his ability to race, he is the most beautiful horse, I think. 4 white feet, a huge white blaze that makes him really easy to spot on the track. He's around 16.2 hands. For non-horsey people, that's 66 inches or around 168 centimetres. Horses are measured in hands. 16.2 is quite big. And thoroughbreds are, if you see a racehorse, that's a thoroughbred, and they are stunning. Very beautifully put together, and he is absolutely gorgeous. And they are built for speed, they are built for stamina, and he is just a beaut. Shergar makes his debut race on the 19th of September 1980 at Newbury Racecourse. It's a modest event for 2-year-olds over 1 mile, and Shergar wins convincingly by 2.5 lengths. And this just marks the beginning of his remarkable racing career. This victory foreshadowed his dominance in the following seasons. His 3-year-old debut race on the 25th of April 1981 was the Guardian Classic Trial at Sandown Park, which he won by 10 lengths. He wins the Chester Vase by 12 lengths, and so this puts him at odds-on favourite at Epsom. Now, he has been ridden a bit by Lester Piggott, who you may have heard of, one of the best jockeys of that's ever been, really, but of his day, he was the jockey. But 19-year-old Walter Swinburne has been made head jockey at the trainer's yard, and his perk as head jockey means he gets to pick his race. And you'd be bonkers to not say, I would like to have the ride of Shergar at the Epsom Derby. And to give his credit, the trainer goes with him over Lester Piggott. Swinburne has had success racing Shergar in previous races, so he knows that they are a good fit. They work well together. And it will be Swinburne who gets called the choir boy because he has got such a baby face. It's his first Derby and it's Shergar's. So we've got two newbies going into one of the UK's biggest horse events. The Epsom Derby has been held every year since 1780. It's a mile and a half, which is perfect for Shergar. Horses are often split into there's lots of different things. You can't enter any horse into any race. Well, you can, but you can't expect them to win. And the Epsom Derby really suited Shergar, who was a miler. He liked around a mile or a bit over. He didn't want anything too much longer than that. Racehorses are also very susceptible to the ground. If it's rained a lot and it's too soft, some horses find that difficult. Again, if it's too hard, they find it difficult. And this all plays its part with races as big as the Derby. It's also, so the Epsom Derby is about a mile and a half. So very good for Shergar. Good distance for him. But even though when you look at it on the television, it looks flat. It basically looks like they're going around in a flat circle. It has a really big incline. So not only are these horses running that distance, you've also got to take into account the elevation. So off they go. Swinburne recalls that early in the race, Shergar, quote, found his own pace and lobbed along as the leaders went off at a million miles an hour, with me just putting my hands down on his withers and letting him travel at his own speed. And then you can see this, and I really recommend you watch it. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it because it is incredible. Shergar settles in at third or fourth behind the front runners, quite close to the rail. If you think about going round in a circle, you don't want to be too far away from the centre because it means you're travelling further than the other horses. So he's quite into the rail, but then again, that makes it very hard to get through to the front if you want to. And then after they make the final bend, Swinburne positions him. He moves him to the outside to give him a clear view. And then it is like Shergar has another gear. He just goes up a level and he goes at such a speed. It's just incredible to watch, especially when you can see, once you get around the final bend and you can see the finish line, you can all the jockeys, they just go for it. You just want to get your horse going as fast as possible. And you can see that most of them have nothing left. They've been going for a mile and a half. They've given all they've got. And Shergar just goes and goes. He gets so far clear that John Matthias, and on the runner-up Glint of Gold, who had been a front runner, thought he'd won. Quote, I told myself I'd achieved my life's ambition. Only then did I discover there was another horse on the horizon. In fact, you can see Walter Swinburne. He's going, and then you can see him look back and sort of back off. He stops basically pushing, and Shergar can take it down a level because he is so far ahead that he's already warming down, essentially, by the time he crosses the post. Shergar wins the Derby by 10 lengths, a record that still stands today. So what are we, 2024? This is 1981. No one's beaten that record. I really, really recommend you watch it. It's just a stunning race. It's amazing to see what that horse was capable of. 12 days after the Epsom Derby, Shergar breaks loose on the morning gallops and they have difficulty tracking him down. Fortunately, he's caught by a van driver outside Henry Cecil's stable. He suffers no ill effects from his jaunt. He is sound, which means all his legs are fine and working. and he's ready for his next race, which is the Irish Derby. And this time, because Swinburne would be on a temporary ban, he is to be ridden by Lester Piggott. And again, the apparent ease with which Shergar passes the rest of the runners is just phenomenal. He wins by 4 lengths. He causes commentator Peter O'Sullivan to exclaim, quote, "He's only in an exercise canter." And that's really it. When you see him go, it is like he's been given an extra gear that the other horses just don't have. He becomes a national hero. He is recognisable. He is this incredible... Not a lot of horses have been able to enter both the Epsom and the Irish Derby. He has won both by a considerable length. And he is just a phenomenal horse, And he has a really fantastic season. But he, towards the end of the season, is the St. Leger, and he comes 4th. Now, there's lots of discussion about this online. Some say that he wasn't quite right in the run-up, that which Swinburne denies. The thought is, he'd run a lot of races. It was soft going, so the ground was soft, which he didn't particularly go well on. But also it is a longer course. So if you're a stayer, if your horse is a stayer, that means they like a longer course. They pace themselves and then go at the end. And that probably isn't going to suit Shergar so much. So by the time they get to the moment where he would normally accelerate, he too has got not a lot left in the tank. For whatever reason, the Aga Khan, understanding horse racing and the value of these animals, he decided, you want to cash in on this horse at his peak value. And so he decides to retire him to stud, which means Shergar goes and gets to shag loads of mares for a long time. I mean, it's a dream for a male horse, I'm sure. So he decides to set up a syndicate. Now, a syndicate is a group of people who all have shares in a horse. This will complicate things later on. He sells 34 shares of the horse at £250,000 each. He keeps 6 of these shares for himself. And this provides a valuation of £10 million for the price of Shergar, which was a record for any stallion in stud in Europe at the time. One of the buyers was Shergar's vet, Stan Cosgrove, which gives you an idea of just how beloved this horse was. And lots of people assumed that Shergar would be moved to the US when he retired to stud. But the Aga Khan and the syndicate decided to move him to Newbridge, County Kildare, and to the Ballymanny stud. And he is greeted in the town like a hero, which he was. And there's the town band playing, school children waving flags. He's paraded down the main street wearing the Aga Khan's green and red racing colours. It's just a perfect retirement for such a hero. He, being the horse that he is, the syndicate are able to charge a hefty stud fee, and he would produce 35 foals from his single season at stud. So basically, if you have a horse that you want to have a baby with Shergar, you pay for it. And that's it. That's how you make your money. And as we know, Ireland at the time is going through the troubles. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of distress going on. But racing and horses, there is money sloshing around all over the shop. So he does really well in his first season as a stud, and all is looking great. But this is also a time when, I mean, the whole world was probably a lot more naive than it is now, and the Ballymanny stud was not very well protected. There was not even a lock on the gate. And so it was on the 8th of February 1983 at 8:30 p.m. A horse trailer arrives at the stud and there's a knock on the door of James Fitzgerald's house. James Fitzgerald is the yard manager, so he lives on site and is in charge of all horses. And Jim's son answers the door. A man asks for James and knocks his son to the floor, and three men with guns then push into the house and hold the family at gunpoint in the kitchen. The men are described as being calm, well organised. They refer to each other as Creswell, and James Fitzgerald is asked to take them to Shergar's stable, which he does. He sees that they've backed a normal two-animal trailer up to the door, and he's then to load the horse onto the trailer, which he does. They've got his family at gunpoint. As far as he can tell, the gang is made up of 6 men, and they drive off with Shergar. He is then loaded into the back of a van, driven around for 3 hours, and then thrown out. He's told not to call the police, not to look behind him, and he's given the password King Neptune to use for ransom negotiations. And it would turn out that he's about 45 minutes away from the stud. This would be the first of its kind in Ireland. He gets home, and because he's been told not to notify the police, he calls the stud farm manager and Shergar's vet, who's part of the syndicate, and they begin to hunt for themselves. The kidnappers call Ballymoney later that day and demand a ransom of £2 million. It's worth getting an understanding of how much money is sloshing around Shergar at the time. In his first year at stud, he covered 44 mares at £80,000 a time. He was fully booked for his second season in 1983. So that's over £260,000 per time per mare. So I believe he was booked for 52 mares for his second season. So I can't do maths. 52 times 260, and that's just for his second season. So you can see how much money there is and how valuable this horse is. Where the thieves are calm and well organised, the police investigation has been called, quote, a caricature of police bungling. After 8 hours, the police are notified, but the gang has cleverly planned the kidnapping to fall before the island's biggest horse sale, meaning that there are horse boxes on every road. There are horses everywhere. There are people driving horses everywhere. And although Shergar's face is very recognisable with his white blaze, if he's in a trailer, you only see his bum. So any horse could be anything. So they're stopping everyone. But, you know, it's just a disaster. While the police search farms in the Republic of Ireland, the gang members set about seeking a ransom, and they're blunt, they're to the point, and by day 3 they say, pay us the money or that's it. Now the syndicate have been told, it's very difficult. It's not like, you call the Aga Khan, he has 2 million. I mean, he's probably got 2 million in a drawer. He pays it, get the horse back. You have to get everyone in agreement. You have to get everyone in the syndicate in agreement, and you have to work out, if I have this many shares, how much money am I paying? All of that. But what's really key here is from the get-go, the syndicate agree that they can't pay the ransom, because if they pay the ransom, this is the first horse that has been kidnapped and held for ransom. And if they pay, it would just mean it was open season on targeting these high-priced horses for money, for ransom money. And, you know, obviously kidnapping and all of this is terrible, but these horses, as we'll find out, are not it's not a bunny rabbit. You can't just pop it in a cage, feed it some stuff and hope that it's okay. On the third day, they say, pay us the money or that's it. They never call again. The search goes cold. The most recognisable horse in the world and possibly the most valuable has disappeared. But while the kidnappers are incredibly organised, they have enough people to keep guns on the family, load up the horse, all of that. They've reversed the box right up to the stable. But for many, nobody thinks that they really had thought about what it takes to look after a horse, let alone a large, fit, healthy stallion. Though Liam Foley, his groom, said his temperament was, quote, very easy, a horse that you could bring him anywhere, do anything with him. But I have to get 2 thoroughbreds in from the field, and sometimes there are dragons in their field and they just jog on the end of their rope, and that's fine because I know about horses. But if you don't know about horses, also these guys are, more like 15-2, so a chunk smaller than Shergar, and that's a lot of animal. It's now believed that within days, maybe even hours, Shergar was shot and put in the bogs of County Leitrim. These claims were made by Sean O'Callaghan in his book, published in 1998, called The Informer. The IRA was suspected from early in the operation, though they have never taken responsibility. There is little doubt that they're responsible. Perhaps they haven't taken responsibility because it didn't go well. O'Callaghan gave a very candid graphic account to bloodstock consultant David Horgan, who had made it his business to be on the trail and to find Shergar. O'Callaghan says Shergar was taken in the horse box. He got excitable. They kept stopping to try and calm him, and then one time they stopped and realised that he had broken a leg and was in a lot of pain. Now, majority of the time, especially I'd say in the 80s and before, a broken leg is game over for a horse. There's no real way of fixing it unless you're in a Jilly Cooper novel. So even if they had a vet with them, there's probably not a lot they could have done, though the vet could very easily have sedated the horse, which would have been the key here. Had they had a vet with them, although I suppose ethically that would have been very dubious, but I would have said that if you're trying to kidnap a horse who's going to be away from the people he knows, in the dark, in an unfamiliar box, under stressful circumstances, and he's a stallion, and he's a thoroughbred, and he's 4, and he's big, you're going to want to sedate that horse so he can stand up in his box, but so he's not going to do anything silly and hurt himself. That's where this plan backfired. And unfortunately, because they had no vet with them, they made the decision to shoot him. And so, according to O'Callaghan, it's literally hours after they got him, because he'd done himself such an injury, they shot him. There's an idea of where the horse might be buried, but locals remain incredibly tight-lipped about this, as you can understand, with IRA connotations, and, nobody wants to be blabbing or talking about stuff. And the thing is, there are bogs around the area where things can just disappear. So no trace of Shergar has ever been found. And the vet, Stan Cosgrove, kept, I believe he's got some mane or tail hair, which he's hoping would be enough to do some DNA checking. But every time a horse skeleton is discovered, it is checked to see if it is Shergar, and as of yet, nothing. Lloyd's paid out £7 million to the syndicate owning him in the June of 1983. That's 23 million in today's money. So they did get money back. Walter Swinburne had a career as an outstanding jockey, though he did struggle with his weight. I won't go into the whole weight thing about jockeys, but quite often if you've ever watched racing, you see them standing on the scales with their saddle, and there will be a certain weight that a certain type of horse has to carry. And so as a jockey, you have to be very careful about how much you weigh, and you have to weigh that amount on the day, because if your weight goes up, your horse is going to have to carry more weights in its saddle, and that's dead lead weight. If your horse is carrying your weight and you're mobile and you're off his back, that's a lot better than having lead weights. So he struggled with bulimia and alcoholism, and he retired in the year 2000. He went on to have some success as a trainer, which is very unusual. Jockeys often don't make great success as trainers. And then in 2016, at the age of 55, he died after falling from a bathroom window. The coroner ruled this death accidental. It was said of Walter Swinburne that he was really only truly happy when he was in the saddle. And that is the really sad story of Shergar. I'm going to put pictures up of him, obviously. If I had the wherewithal, I would put a video of him up. But instead, I'm just going to share a link. And you can go and watch that incredible win at the Epsom Derby and see what I mean. I know I'm a horsey person, and I may be talking to a lot of non-horsey people, but that horse has charisma. He's just a beaut. Thanks to everyone who has purchased some merch. I have just bought myself a long sleeve Pod Dog t-shirt. If it comes out nicely, I will be listing them, because I remembered that at this time, as we go into September, I really like to stay in my shorts for as long as possible, but with a long sleeve t-shirt so I don't get chilly. And I thought, why not get a Pod Dog one? Can you hear children screaming in the background? It's the summer holidays. I'd love to hear from you, so send me an email, theMondayNightRevue@gmail.com. Come and check out social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find me, The Monday Night Review. All the links are below. Come and join the Patreon. There's loads of extra episodes there. And until next time, be kind, stay safe, and always check the back seats before you drive.